I found 3 different ways to defeat yourself in Pokemon Pocket. And no, I'm not talking about hitting the concede button, that obviously doesn't count. I mean legitimately defeating yourself within the rules of the game by giving your opponents prize points or wiping yourself off the board. But you're probably wondering, why the heck would I even want to do this? Pokemon Pocket loves to run events where you need to win a certain number of PvP games in a row in order to get the ultimate prize for the event. For many players who don't have the best decks or aren't as comfortable with PvP, this sounds like an impossible challenge, but I wanted to help a few struggling players out in the funniest way possible. So in order to do that, we're going to use the 3 methods I devised to build one ultimate self-defeating deck in Pokemon Pocket. This is going to be fun. Our first method is going to involve giving our opponent prize points. It's very difficult to attack yourself in Pokemon Pocket. By the rules of the game, you can only attack the enemy Pokemon. That being said, there are a few Pokemon capable of dealing damage to themselves. Specifically, at the time of this video, I'm looking at Electabuzz and Arcanine EX. These Pokemon both have some serious recoil damage, meaning they always or sometimes will damage themselves when they attack. Now, for those of you who are saying, well, what about regular Arcanine? Regular Arcanine works too, but it's not an EX Pokemon. Arcanine EX will actually give the opponent 2 prize cards when it knocks itself out, so I think it's just a little bit better. And since Electabuzz isn't guaranteed to damage itself, I decided to go with Arcanine EX for this challenge. I started a game with a viewer, the King of Apples, to try to make this happen. We both worked really hard to achieve this, and it took us kind of just not attacking and messing around for a few turns to create a situation where the King of Apples had 1 prize point and I had none. We then chipped away at Arcanine's health until it was exactly in range to KO itself. I made the final attack, and awesomely, it did work. I was able to give my opponent 2 prize points for KOing my own Arcanine EX. As hype as that was, it took both of us making very contrived and abnormal moves in order to make this happen. It's not something that could actually happen in a real game, but that's okay, because these next 2 ideas I had are increasingly fast and increasingly consistent. Since giving my opponents prize points was too slow, I wanted to try a different win condition, or I guess I should say, a different lose condition. I wanted to see if I could wipe out my own board. If I have no Pokemon in the active slot or on my bench, I immediately lose the game. Unfortunately, Pokemon Pocket makes it really hard to achieve this for free. You see, in order to build a deck, you have to include at least 1 basic Pokemon that can be played at the start of the game. You're then guaranteed to draw at least 1 basic Pokemon in your starting hand, and you are forced by the game to play that Pokemon in the active slot before the beginning of the first turn. This means that no matter how hard I try, I am not allowed to instantly lose the game. I need some way to get rid of that first Pokemon. Or, I need to play other Pokemon and cards to enable me to get rid of that Pokemon and whatever other Pokemon I play. My first idea involved making sure that every basic Pokemon in my deck was a Koffing. I then waited until I could draw Weezing and evolved it into Weezing. And then on the same turn, I immediately played the Koga supporter card. Koga removed Weezing from my active slot, putting it back into my hand. But since my bench was empty, this completely cleared my field, causing me to instantly lose the game. What's really scary is that several of you predicted that I would do this in my next video in the comment section of my last video, and one of you even predicted what this video would be. But luckily, none of you predicted the final strategy I was going to use, which makes me very proud of it. The problem with the Koffing, Weezing, and Koga strategy is that you need to have both Weezing and Koga in your hand. And unfortunately, that's not a guaranteed thing to happen. For example, even if I build the perfect deck for this with 2 Koffing, 2 Weezing, 2 Koga, and let's add 2 Professor Oak to help me draw them faster, though of course you can't play Koga in the same turn you play Professor Oak, but it still helps. I've only filled out 8 of the 20 cards needed to build a full deck. I do like this strategy and I want to use it, but I want to build another strategy that I could execute instead in case I'm having trouble with this one. Ideally, a strategy that could fill out the remaining cards of this deck, and something that's maybe even easier, even faster to use, so that I can give people wins as quickly as possible. Here's my idea. I continued with Koffing being the only basic Pokemon, technically, in the deck, meaning that it is what ends up in my active slot. Only this time, I'm assuming that I don't draw Weezing or Koga in time, and I allow my opponent to KO Koffing. But I have a little something on the bench. That's right, fossils. I fill my bench with fossil cards, and when Koffing is defeated, I put one of the fossil cards into the active slot. I then play another fossil, filling in the missing bench tile. My entire board is now full of Pokemon. Every single slot is full of Pokemon. So it's time to nuke my board. I click on the active slot and discard my first fossil, causing it to be removed from the game. This does not give my opponent any prize points, so one of my other fossils goes into the active slot, and I do it again. You can keep doing this, and if you have more fossils in your hand, you can play them onto your bench too, and then delete them too. It's hilarious! Your opponent gets to watch you spam Pokemon, and yet those Pokemon self-destruct until you have nothing left, your board is completely nuked by you, and your opponent wins the game. Let's put everything we learned together in the ultimate self-defeating deck. Well, we're gonna take the Koffing, Weezing, Koga, and Professor Oak, and add on to them 6 fossil cards. 2 Amber Fossil, 2 Helix, and 2 Dome. We still have 6 open slots in our deck. You can put whatever you want in here, but as for me, I'm going to put in 2 Electabuzz, 2 Growlithe, and 2 Arcanine EX. It's kind of cool that we've combined all 3 strategies into one ultimate self-defeating deck. I think the fossil strategy is the one you're going to use the most, but you have other options to keep it interesting. Let me know if you make people's days by giving them free consecutive wins with this awesome deck. And give me callouts in the comments if you have ideas for future videos, like these amazing viewers, or if you're just psychic and know what I'm already working on like these folks. Have fun, and I'll catch you later.